President May, Commissioners, good morning. It's now 11:45. You do have a quorum.
All right, very good. Welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and start with our pre-commission meeting. Does anyone have any general housekeeping items, concerns, questions that they'd like to bring up? Okay, hearing none. Any comments or concerns about the agenda? I do have one on the minutes. Under regular agenda item number 1, under all of the declarations, I also declared that my son is employed by BSU. So I would like to have that reflected in the minutes, as I stated. So if somebody would be so kind as to include that in their motion to approve the consent agenda, I would appreciate it.
What? To do what?
In our minutes, under declarations, it just stated that my 2 children had gone to BSU, but I had also stated that Matthew is employed by BSU, and I think that's something that needs to still stay in the minutes. Okay. So if somebody could include that in their motion, I would appreciate it. That's all I have for that. Does anybody else have any comments about the agenda? All right. Director Wong.
Okay.
I'll turn that over to you for your report. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, good morning, Commissioners. A couple things to share with you. First, a rather sad note. We understand we received word this morning that a very good friend of the district, Dave Jorgensen's brother, passed away on 1 July. His funeral will be this Friday in Caldwell, and we have already sent flowers on behalf of the district and such. So wanted to make sure you are aware of that.
Thank you.
The Boise ACHG joint session is scheduled for next week, next Tuesday from 9 to 11. It is somewhat of a hybrid, both Zoom and if someone would like to show up in person at City Hall, they'll have 1 or 2 council members there, as I understand. I will be there, as will Stacy, to assure we have no open meeting issues. We have been going back and forth a little bit on the topics. Here's what we believe we've settled on, and we'll have a little bit more work to this, but they'll have a introduction period, and then they'll have a we've been asked to do we've agreed to do a COVID-19 response and experience, both ACHD and Boise, to make presentations on that. We're still working on the timing. Boise is going to make a presentation on the opportunity for small business expansion. We have been asked and agreed to do a review on the Harrison Boulevard traffic calming pilot project to include speed reduction and the unique traffic calming that we are proposing to the neighborhood. And then the final topic will be what they call next steps, or future meeting frequencies, topics for consideration, that sort of stuff. We'll have this to you out in print probably tomorrow when we finalize everything, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. You also have scheduled a joint session, Zoom joint session with the City of Garden City. That's on the 24th from 12:30 to 1:30, and the topics are still being coordinated. We hope to have those down by this Friday. And then finally, the staff, we will be bringing you a proposal to consider here in the near future of a survey to consider funding an ACHG-wide public survey to see what the public thinks ACHG spending priorities should be, to include questions about revenue and property taxes. Now, we have done such a survey in the past, but that was years back. And the key question at the time was, if ACHG had an extra dollar, how should we spend it? As some of you recall, we got some very great answers on that. We've been going down that path. The timing is really still up in the air on this right now, because I don't see this being fully vetted with RFPs, what we really want to do, publications, that sort of stuff, until probably out to the public around the end of September timeframe and such. But if you are agreeable to that concept when we bring it to you, we believe it's time, and we'll have further information for you later. So that being said, that's what I have for you for the update. Do you have any questions for me at this point?
Do not. Commissioners, any questions for Director Wong? No? All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You have about 10 minutes, Commissioners.
10 minutes. All right. Thank you.
I am good. How are you today?
Monday.
It's a Wednesday.
I know, but it feels like a Monday. Did you do anything fun for the 4th?
We were here, but last week the reason why I was here is I was in McCall that prior weekend, Brady, and he was there for 3 nights. Off on Sunday, we took off on Wednesday during the day. So,
Yeah.
Brian and I had a mini vacation, and we played lots of golf.
I think that's good for you.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Another year.
Another year.
Under my belt.
Here, do you think my kid needs a haircut? Ours is official. It's his birthday today.
Oh,
That's a
cute.
secret.
So adorable.
Or that one. There you go.
How old is he now?
He is 9.
No way.
9.
Wow.
I know. I know.
Goes by
What are you gonna do?
fast. Goes by fast.
It does.
What? Who?
Madam President, Commissioners, good afternoon. It's 12 o'clock.
All right, thank you, Director Wong. Welcome, everyone. I will now call our July 8th Commission meeting to order. And Director Wong, if you would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you all please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Today, I would like to take an opportunity to recognize Scott Spears, ACHD's Assistant General Counsel, for his dedication to ACHD's mission. He has been instrumental in standing up and coordinating our ADA assessment protocols while chairing our recent ADA ACHD-wide survey on operations, planning, execution, and inspections. Certainly no small feat. Scott has also seamlessly stepped in for the General Counsel when needed and taken the lead on numerous complex legal issues, ensuring that ACHD never misses a beat. Recently, he was also selected to participate on the Governor's Task Force on Damage Prevention. Scott is an extremely valued member of our team. His professionalism and expertise is unparalleled and greatly appreciated. Thank you, Scott, for all that you do. All right. Our first order of business today is to adopt our agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move adoption of the consent agenda with the following change to the minutes, that Commissioner May's son is also employed by BSU, not just a graduate of BSU.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much. The first item on our regular agenda will be a presentation from the City of Kuna. I would like to welcome Mayor Joe Steer, who is joining us on Zoom today as well. And the presentation will be made by Lisa Holland, who is the Economic Development Director for the City of Kuna. Welcome. We look forward to hearing what you have to share with us today. So with that, I will turn it over to Lisa.
Thank you very much. And I'm actually going to have Mayor Steer kick us off and just give a quick an introduction, and then I'll take it over from there.
All right. Great to see you. All right. Mayor Steer, welcome.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I appreciate you giving us an audience on this. It's something we've been working on for quite a while. As you know, or as you will find out if you don't know, we hired Lisa Holland on as an Economic Development Director, and she has put in a lot of time and effort into working through some processes to help bring jobs to the city of Kuna. We became largely a bedroom community. We're still that way, but I think this is a great way for us to bring some jobs to the city of Kuna. So we wanted to make sure that everything we do properly. We certainly appreciate our relationship with Ada County Highway District and the commissioners and Director Wong. And we certainly want to make sure that you always know what we're up to when we do things like this. So Lisa has prepared a presentation, and I'll go ahead and let her kick off that. And again, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Steer. All right, Lisa.
All right, and hopefully you can all,
Back to you.
can you see the screen okay on your side?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners, for giving us a few minutes of your time. We are big fans of being collaborative partners and keeping everyone up to date on what we're working on as we go. And I can't believe that I'm up to 2 years of being in the city of Kuna. It's been a lot of fun, and a lot of strategic planning and a lot of just kind of dreaming about where we want Kuna to be. And a special thank you to Commissioner Goldthorpe for being a part of our Economic Development Committee. It's been great to have his involvement as well, and I think we've done some good planning. So I just thought we'd start with giving a little roadmap of kind of where Kuna's at right now and some of the things that we're working on, and then an ask to see if you guys would be interested in partnering with us. So I'll just start with showing a little bit of demographics. Kuna is obviously a very fast-growing city. When you look at our population, where we were in 2000 with 5,300 people to where we are now with just under 25,000, we are quickly passing the rural suburban community that we were. And we're merging really quickly with the rest of the metro region as Boise has become a hotspot for people to move to. We are a little bit younger in demographic age than the rest of the metro region. About 86% of our population is under the age of 59. So we have a lot of people in the workforce in Kuna that commute and use the roadways to go to work in Meridian or Boise. And while we have some jobs in Kuna, we're really trying to work to bring more jobs here locally so that we can have less people on the roads and the freeways and more people just within the community where they live. This just shows a little bit of our housing growth over the last 10 plus years. And I don't have 2020 on here, but you'll notice that in 2019, our new homes sold outpaced our existing homes sold for the first time since before 2008. And we issued 699 residential building permits in the year 2019. So certainly seeing a lot of interest of people wanting to move here. And part of the challenge with that is making sure you have the commercial services to keep up with that growth and the infrastructure to keep up with that growth. This is just kind of a roadmap. We adopted a new comprehensive plan in July of 2019, and this map just shows what our future plans look like for the city of Kuna. A couple things just to point out. Everything that's in red is kind of where we're hoping to see commercial in the future. The gray areas are kind of where we'd like to see light industrial. And ACHD was a great participant in how we crafted this plan. We did over 2 years of due diligence, and I'm sure the mayor can add more to that because it was before my time even in Kuna. But they really tried to create a plan that reflected what the community wanted to see, and we're pretty proud of what we've come together with. There's certainly a lot of residential growing, but as I mentioned, 95% of our tax base right now is based on residential, so we've got a big priority on trying to get commercial and industrial to Kuna. And we also have about 95% of our population that commutes to work outside of Kuna, and so we're trying to get that percentage down a little bit as well. So if you look in kind of this area, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but out towards kind of East Kuna, we've got CS Beef operating out there with a great number of employees, and we're grateful to have them within our realm, and they've been a great partner and actually sit on the Economic Development Committee as well. And we're hopeful that some of this area will develop over time to be a bigger industrial presence for Kuna. But as we look a little bit closer to kind of where our core is and where downtown Kuna is, we certainly have some infrastructure problems or challenges, not problems, in attracting commercial development to come to Kuna. We've got a lot of land opportunities and a lot of space for commercial projects, but having shovel-ready pieces of ground that are zoned, ready to go, has been kind of our downfall in being able to attract a lot of these projects that are working through the Boise Valley Economic Partnership or through Idaho Department of Commerce. So we've been working really just on trying to figure out how do we get ourselves shovel ready so that we can compete for more of these employers, in addition to finding some of the retailers and neighborhood commercial that we need. This is what our retail kind of looks like in Kuna right now. So we're underserved on our market, but we've had a great growth spurt in new commercial wanting to come in. Taco Bell is a newer addition to our market. Panda Express is a newer addition. We just got Rice Works just opened up in our downtown during the COVID crisis and has been doing well. And we've got Wendy's has announced that they're coming in, and there's certainly a lot of activity happening along Highway 69. And then as you look at what does the retail opportunity look like for Kuna, I just always find this a fascinating slide. So Kuna residents in 2018 spent about $66 million on retail services with the 52 retail businesses that are in that classification. But we spent about $241 million total from Kuna residents. So we're spending about $174 million outside of Kuna on retail services. And so that's kind of shaped what types of industries we're chasing, what types of services we're chasing. And we really know that we're underserved and trying to make sure that we've got enough amenities for all of our residents to want to come home at night and stay and enjoy nice restaurants and dining and job opportunities here. So one of the tools that's available to cities is urban renewal districts. And I'm sure that you're all familiar with at least the basics of that. And if not, I'd be happy to kind of run through how that works. But it enables a city to put together a boundary around a certain part of the city that needs some infrastructure improvements. And it's a way that we can allocate, the easiest way to describe it is if you have a piece of ground in that district that's worth $100,000 and you attract a new project that comes in that puts a building on that, it becomes worth $1 million. The first $100,000 gets paid the way that it always has, but the additional $900,000, the property taxes collected on that go back into the district defined around that property for infrastructure projects. So it's a great tool and an opportunity for cities like Kuna who need some help getting sewer lift stations or pump stations or roadway projects, fiber, power, anything infrastructure related, to be able to invest in that for the specific district. So we've spent about 2 years working on understanding urban renewal, and we've done some strategic planning workshops with our Economic Development Committee. We've done some outreach to the broader community. We've been talking about it with our Economic Development Committee, and we've also met with your staff many times to talk about what really needs to happen in Kuna long-term to make us successful. And so as we kind of looked at that, we hired a consultant last year to do a study for us of a proposed eligibility study of what areas could we do a district in. So just to familiarize you on the map, this is the corridor coming into Kuna, the big curve. And then you come into kind of our downtown area over here. And then if you looked at that future use map, certainly there's some commercial planned for right in this area here. And then as you come down south, this is an area that we would hope to see a future light industrial park or commercial business district. Right now we do have a small industrial loop here, but they've been surrounded a little bit by residential, and it's hard to expand that much further than where they are. So as we looked at what areas of town we could consider, we spent a lot of time and a lot of thought thinking about what projects we would need to accomplish. You'll notice there's a couple of parcels with X's and colors on it. In order to be a part of the urban renewal district, they have to be a part of city limits. So there are a number of landowners that are considering annexing into the city of Kuna to be a part of the district. That's what those X's are. And a couple that have said we prefer not to be in the district, so we'll remove those from our parcels. But our next step right now is we're working on creating a district plan that would kind of highlight what priorities do we have, what infrastructure projects do we need to focus on, and how do we prioritize what fundings take place on those. A lot of the conversations we've had in our strategic planning workshops and with the Economic Development Committee, and I know Commissioner Goldthorpe and I have talked about this many times, are some roadway projects. As Meridian Road curves into Kuna, is there potential that it could continue south at some point and open up to future light industrial? Is there a way we can look at this intersection and make it improve so that way it's a little bit less stressful for people turning off of Kuna Road, where we've seen a number of new developments that have come before your body as well for approval. And we certainly know that this road will see more strain as that growth continues. So this intersection would be one that I would say you've got a high priority from the City of Kuna's Urban Renewal Agency as well as the Economic Development Committee on wanting to see some funds focused on this corner and this intersection and the possibility of that road extending south. Another conversation we've had many times with ACHD is the ability to have an overpass somewhere in Kuna. So that might be something that's put on the consideration list for funding within this urban renewal district. Whether we go with the plans of where it's been right now or whether we look at some other options, there's certainly a lot of opportunity there. And I know we're also doing kind of a pre-engineering study on 4th Street right now. We are finishing up our downtown revitalization on Main Street, and we'd really love to have a cohesive 2-block system that as the community grows and redevelops, 4th Street could become a part of the urban fabric of our downtown. So there's a few of the road projects that we're thinking could be a part of this plan, but we'd really love to hear from you and be a partner with you on figuring out how to keep moving forward and keep Kuna growing in the right ways. And one other request we have for your consideration, this last legislative session, they made a new rule that highway districts could keep the increment instead of allowing the urban renewal district to keep it if it was formed after July 1st. We could have rushed to get the district formed before July, but we wanted to be better partners than that, and we thought it'd be better to work with you on creating a collaborative plan. And our hope is that you might be willing to enter an agreement with us to allow us to keep the increment that would go to you from this district, specifically to earmark it for some of those infrastructure projects related to roadways. So that's a lot of information from me, and I'll pause to see if Mayor Steer has any other comments or if there's questions for me as well.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Mayor Steer?
Yeah, like Lisa said, we've done a lot of planning. We're in the middle of looking at engineering out the projects now. So as we do that, it'll show us better, I think, what we need to include into the 5-year plan for ACHD. And the one thing we want to really do is make sure that when as we go through this, that we have a good plan. Not just a lot of ideas. So we're working really hard to put that all together and make sure that that all makes sense. ITD is also taking comments currently on improvements on Highway 69, so we will certainly make comment for that. But I think before we added a lot of stuff into the 5-year plan, we really needed to do some engineering there to take a look and see what needs to happen and how it needs to happen, and what the property owners are willing to do with it. So, like I said before, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate our relationship with Ada County Highway District, commissioners and director, and all your staff for that matter, have just been generous with your time and your assistance, and we certainly do appreciate that. Downtown is going good and looking good. I think they're paving now, so that's exciting for us to get that project done. But anyway, that's kind of all I have. So any questions?
All right, thank you very much. Great presentation, Lisa. We are always interested in having collaborative relationships with the various jurisdictions. I think that's when everybody wins, when we all work together. So it's good to see Kuna stepping out and moving forward and being proactive like this. So thank you very much for the presentation today. If you could provide the maps that you shared with us today so that we could all have those to take a closer look at those as well, that would be appreciated. But with that, commissioners, any questions for Mayor Steer or for Lisa?
Madam President,
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
I am sure it wasn't lost on anyone, but just to make sure it wasn't, it's not very often that we hear from anybody with an urban renewal district that tells us they not only want to partner with us, but that they want to make sure that we understand that that increment is going to come back into the roads. That's a huge thing in my mind.
Thank
Madam
you.
President?
Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, that intrigued me as well, because usually, they just glom the money and then spend it on all sorts of things, and yet still expect ACHD to do the road work anyway. So I had a question, though, and I don't doubt that Kuna is extremely sincere with the elected officials they have now. However, urban renewal districts go for 20 years, and I assume that this one would be exactly the same. So how would something be crafted that would sort of codify and put into contractual form that offer of any money raised from the increment that would have gone to ACHD would be spent on transportation roadways? How would we codify that for the entire 20-year period of the urban renewal district?
So my thought on that is that we would do that through our agreement. we would put something together that is binding, that we all sign off on, and because it's not money that we already have, and it's not really tying future councils to spending any money, because it goes into kind of a slush fund, so to speak, or a savings account. That savings account might be a better idea word there, but I think we can earmark the funding that would normally go to ACHD, make sure it stays there so that those improvements can be made. And it might be such a thing that your legal can comment on that, but I believe that we can do an agreement that takes care of that.
Thank you, Mayor Steer. Mr. Price, did you have something to add?
Sure, Madam President, Commissioners, Steve Price, General Counsel for the Highway District. Commissioner Baker, I think there's a way to draft that agreement, and fully expect that the agreement would identify projects and the earmarking of funds for those projects over that period of time. But we can do that.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Madam President, if I can follow up too, I would just say that we're working with a consultant right now, and part of what we do when we form an urban renewal district is you create a detailed plan with the infrastructure projects you'd like to include, with the priorities on how those would be funded. And I think it'd be pretty easy to put some notes in that plan itself, earmarking funds specific from the increment collected for the highway district that could be used for some of those projects.
Very good.
Well, then you would be a different kind of urban renewal district then, because that's not necessarily the case as we've seen in Ada County. So, okay. But no, if we can come to some kind of an agreement like that, I think that this is a great concept.
And I think one more follow-up comment is we'd like to become known as a city that did urban renewal right, and we become a roadmap for how to do it in the future, so that we complete the infrastructure projects we have in mind. And if we can accomplish what we need to do before the 20 years and close out of it, then we move on to what the next priority is for the city. But I think we really have an opportunity to make some good changes in infrastructure projects for the city.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you, Lisa. Do any other commissioners have any comments or questions for either Mayor Steer or Lisa?
Madam President?
Commissioner Hansen.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Lisa. I appreciate it. Mayor Steers, this is a great presentation. I think the default position should definitely be that the urban renewal district keeps the increment. ACHD does not measure return on investment, and you're all about doing a return on investment to enhance the value of that property so that everybody in Kuna and in fact in the whole county benefits. And I realize that the new process has created greater costs and bureaucratic levels and attorney agreements between agencies, which is unfortunate. But from my standpoint, I'd like to see, since you're the determiner of what the best investment is in your own community, that increment should by default, unless there's some extraordinary reason. But I think this is I appreciate you making this presentation. But since we're a special purpose district, we're about moving cars, not about economic development. It really should be in your hands. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, I look forward to next steps. Thank you both very much. It was very informative, and we appreciate you taking the time to come and present to us today. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right. The next item that we have on our regular agenda is a cooperative development agreement for Pierce Park Lane. This is a request for approval. We will start by hearing from staff. Mr. Gall. Welcome.
Pull this down a bit so I can see. Good afternoon, President May and Commissioners. This is Bill Gall, Development Review Supervisor, and this is a decision briefing for the Reserve at Deer Valley Pierce Park Lane Cooperative Development Agreement. The preliminary plat for the reserve at Deer Valley was approved by the ACHD Commission on September 15th of 2015 for 96 buildable lots and 6 common lots on 90 acres. The city approved a time extension for the subdivision, so the plat and all associated conditions are still valid at this time. ACH required in the preliminary plat the applicant to improve Pierce Park Lane to a 30-foot paved width, utilizing 11-foot travel lanes and 4-foot shoulders or bike lanes, noting that in some areas we could not get the 30-foot width due to terrain and also right-of-way constraints. Additionally, our conditions of approval required, because this project is in the West Foothills Overlay Assessment District, required the applicant enter into an extraordinary impact fee agreement. Requires these same improvements. And then ACHD also required the Cooperative Development Agreement for these off-site improvements, which the conditions cannot be altered. Here are the site-specific conditions of approval in that plat. As mentioned, construct Pierce Park Lane to 11-foot lanes and 4-foot wide bike lanes. And then also 3 is to enter into the extraordinary impact fee agreement, which was done. And then 4, enter into this cooperative development agreement with the district for the design, construction, and reimbursement of the improvements to Pierce Park Lane. So the developer is complying with the improvements and with the agreement. Here we go. In this is some information out of the extraordinary impact fee agreement. Section 1E discussed the rural street standard, which was required in the West Foothills Overlay Assessment District, and what it is: a 30-foot pavement with 3-foot gravel shoulders on each side. Section 3.1, that the developer agrees to pay the extraordinary impact fee with the development of these parcels. As well as in section 4.1, not listed here, that the design will be to rural street standards, and notes also that there will be reduced widths at some areas due to topographical constraints. The project plans have been approved. They were approved with an original CDA, as noted in the staff memo. Those project plans are approved with a 30-foot typical section. This 30-foot section is for approximately 76% of the project. There are about 4 areas that can't, due to topographical constraints, we cannot get that full 30-foot segment. And those segments are, here's another typical section which shows a 26-foot minimum typical section. 3 of those 4 segments are 26-foot. Another segment is 29-foot. But we do have 30-foot in a large majority of the area. In summary, the preliminary plat requires the widening to 30 feet, except in limited areas due to terrain issues. The extraordinary impact fee agreement is in place. Requires the payment of the extraordinary impact fees and the improvements to the 30-foot road section. The preliminary plat has been extended by the city, so ACHD cannot change the site-specific requirements. Construction plans have been completed, complying with all the conditions of approval, and we are simply here asking that this CDA be executed per the site-specific conditions of approval in the preliminary plat. We understand that there has been a question raised regarding a law question, and I ask that General Counsel will address that question.
Thank you, Mr. Gall. Mr. Price?
Thank you, Bill. Again, Steve Price, General Counsel, Ada County Highway District. I believe the Commission's received a question regarding the ability to amend plats, and somebody sent in a reference to Title 50-1315, and it relates to subparagraph 2. There is something to the effect that the plat shall be modified or reconfigured in order to meet current standards before access permits to the public rights of way are issued. I think there's this provision does not apply in this instance for the reason that that particular statute only kicks in if the existing plat would result in an unsafe traffic condition. And the paragraph also references vehicular traffic. Staff has confirmed, at least our traffic department and the deputy director of technical services confirmed that there are no unsafe traffic conditions as a result of these improvements. I'd also like to mention to the commission that the commission in the past, this will be the third basically extension of the same development agreement. In March 15, 2017, the commissioner unanimously adopted basically the same version. What we're really doing is extending the time. That time expired. The second cooperative development agreement was approved by the commission unanimously on October 24, 2018, and this third agreement is simply being brought to you to extend the deadline, and also there includes some new investors as assigned. So in any event, this is pretty straightforward. There's no need. The plat is what it is. It's been fully approved by City of Boise as well as ACHD, and the conditions. This is necessary to meet the site-specific conditions that the commission required back at the time that the original adoption of the plat was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Madam President, could I have?
Just one moment, Commissioner Hanson. Do you have a question for Mr. Price, Commissioner Hanson?
I do.
All right, okay. Before Mr. Gall comes back up, go right ahead.
Yes, so Steve, your interpretation of the statute is that it only kicks in for unsafe car traffic conditions, not for unsafe bicycle traffic conditions. Is that your interpretation?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, it specifically says public rights-of-way for vehicular traffic included in plats which would not conform to current highway standards of the appropriate public highway agency regarding alignments and access locations, if developed, would result in an unsafe traffic condition. That's what the statute says.
Right, so unsafe traffic condition does not apply to unsafe bicycle traffic.
I believe that the statute is modifying vehicular traffic, which was in the first 5 words.
Okay, so our job under this statute is to look after what might be unsafe car traffic, but we're fine to leave it as unsafe bicycle traffic. No, I just wanted to interpret the statute. Thank you.
Well, and Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, the staff have opined, technical staff, traffic staff, as well as our technical services, that there are both no unsafe conditions for bicyclists, pedestrians. The roadway design and requirements that were required at the time of the plat, those standards are still in effect, and they don't see any situation there that would result in an unsafe condition.
Madam President?
Commissioner Goldthorpe, question for Mr. Price?
I have a question of Steve, by definition stuff. All my life, I've heard vehicular traffic described in 2 ways: motorized vehicular traffic and non-motorized vehicular traffic. And this particular statute does not address the difference. Is there a difference?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I looked in the definition section of this portion of the code. It does not define vehicular traffic. In fact, under the Highway District Code, there is no distinction between those 2 things. But I think a court would interpret vehicular as meaning related to vehicles.
Mr. Goldthorpe?
My worry about that thought or hope would be if the court had to interpret that after some bicyclists got run over, we might not stand on as firm a ground as we think we have today. So I'm starting to, I am worried personally about the safety aspect of this, the statutory safety.
Mr. Price, I have a, okay, go ahead, Commissioner Baker.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, please.
Well, my question was just related to the timing of these, the preliminary plat, how long the extension of the preliminary plat goes, and then what is the term of this contract, the cooperative agreement. So, I mean, I can wait on that.
No, that's a good question. Mr. Gall?
Yes, President May and Commission. The time extension goes through early February of 2021. Our agreement here allows for the construction in the 2021 season, and they would need to be completed by October 31st of 2021.
And they have to begin construction prior to February 2021 for this to even have any force, correct?
No, they don't have to start construction. They would have to apply for another extension from the city of Boise that would have to be approved for the plat to remain active, but it would be
Right, I know.
their call.
Well, that's kind of what I meant. They have to do something. If they just go to March 2021 and have done nothing, it all goes away.
It would.
Thank you.
Mr. Gall, so they have received 3 extensions now, is that correct, from the city of Boise? And so they now currently still have a valid plat, is that correct?
I received they provided me with their last extension. I thought it was from February of 2020 to February of 2021. So I'm not that, familiar with the requirements on the extensions. But I do know that it's valid.
Yes, no, I understand it's valid, and there can be no changes at this juncture to be made to those. We have had several comments about the current standard of the 5-foot bike lane. I realize that we have topographical constraints out there. No construction has started yet. So as I look at this, we can approve, deny, or look at, is there some sort of compromise or exception to policy that we could consider moving forward with this?
Madam President, again, Steve Price for the record. The plat sets all the requirements. The CDA does not. So there isn't anything that we can do today to modify that plat. I suppose we can sit down with the developer and see if they're willing to make additional improvements. But that would be simply more voluntary. We don't really have any leverage. Remember, this agreement's been approved unanimously by the commission, all the commissioners with the exception of you, Madam President, Commissioner Woods in that instance. This agreement the commission has adopted as to its form and substance as noted in the past. This is only a requirement to make those improvements and to share those costs. We can't change the requirements of the plat at this time. That left a long time ago.
But could there be a discussion on an exception to the travel lane width at this juncture? Director Wong?
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioners, I think what you're getting at is something we shared a little earlier. The idea of paint and width is something that was in the preview of the commission. If the commission wishes to go with a slightly narrower vehicle travel lane of 10 feet versus the 11, which is the standard, then we can then paint the proposed bicycle lane from 4 to 5 feet. Now, that being said, in this area, that is not consistent across the entire span of the project. As staff has indicated, some of that road width, the maximum width is 26 feet. So then you'd be back down to something of, I won't even call, we might be able to put a sharrow or something in those very limited areas where the travel lane does go down. But you do have, if that's what you're referring to, the commission does have flexibility in what is striped and painted by our team in this project. Madam President, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, Director Wong. Thank
you.
you very much. Any other?
Madam President, I'd like to follow up with that. That is a
Yeah,
that is a
Mr. Price.
decision that's independent of the CDA agreement. ACHD staff is the one that would approve, and you could, through the director, most certainly direct any and come back to the commission with different striping options and configurations for your consideration. But most certainly that there's no impact on the Cooperative Development Agreement.
That's before us today. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Price, for that clarification. Commissioner Baker, did you have an additional comment?
And this would just be for Steve. So what happens if we say no to the agreement?
Madam President, Commissioner Baker, then those improvements on Pierce Park would not be made, and the district would be violating its own condition of the original preliminary plat, and the developer would be relinquished of that responsibility and could still go forward with their project.
Thank you.
Mr. Price, while you are still there, when the motion is made, should the motion be made to approve this today, then would there be an additional language to reference the ability to come back for a variation or exception to the striping, the travel lane width? Does that need to be part of the motion today?
Madam President, I don't believe so, but you most certainly can, as part of that, request the director to come back to the commission with different striping plan and reconfigurations for the commission's consideration at a future date.
All right, thank you.
Madam President, before Steve runs away again.
Getting his workout.
Yep.
One more question, Mr. Price. Thank you.
Can we also include signage requirements? Because if we're down to 3 or 4 feet on those bicycle lanes, then I think we ought to make it glaringly apparent to vehicular traffic that just as we do when deer are crossing the road, that they need to be very careful in not missing the cyclists on the road as far as their presence there, not targeting them.
Madam President and Commissioner Goldthorpe, I guess most certainly the request to the director would come back with a plan to provide enhanced signs and other types of possible facilities to address that concern.
Yes, I realized that I was there on 2015 as a brand new commissioner when we first signed off on this plat. I think if that were coming back here today, I might have a different attitude, but that's water under the bridge. I'm worried, really worried about the safety aspects of this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Gall, did you have more that you were going to say to the commission?
Madam President, I'm sure he does.
Director Wong? Okay.
If the commission does elect to give that type of direction, I would like to ask that, I'd like to run that through the Bicycle Advisory Committee too.
Very good. Thank you, Director Wong. Mr. Gall.
President May, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted, in conclusion, that the staff recommends, approval of the Cooperative Development Agreement and authorization to sign the agreement. We can move forward, and we would be happy to look with traffic for different striping configurations and signing as necessary. So if directed, we'd be happy to take a look at that and come back. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think that would be a critical portion. Any other questions for Mr. Gall or comments?
Yeah, Madam President, I have a question.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah. So, I was reading through in detail, there's a lot of reference to the quality of the pavement in this. That before we sign off on it, we have to be completely assured of that the various conditions of the pavement. There's quite a lot of detail. I looked very closely to try and determine what the speed of this road is going to be and whether we are similarly concerned about designing and building this road to be consistent with the posted speed limit, but I couldn't find it. Was there any discussion of that? And if so, if there wasn't, why? Do you know what the speed limit?
The speed limit currently is 25 miles per hour. I believe that's maintained with the improvements out there. So.
Thank you, Mr. Gall.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Gall or Mr. Price? All right, Ms. Spencer, you said that we had an individual sign up to comment on this.
We do. Clancy Anderson.
Hi there.
All right. Welcome, Clancy.
President May and Commissioners. Hopefully you've seen some of my comments already, so I'll be brief. I actually drove this area last night and noted most of the sections should not be constrained by the topography. And to answer Commissioner Hansen's question, this limit is currently 30 miles an hour, but it drives much better at 25 miles an hour due to the turns. And one thing when you do consider, I probably don't have a problem with the 30-foot plat. It's the striping that was in the original agreement. This is a very used road according to the Strava heat map. Strava heat map is data that you guys have used before. And Pierce Park is an integral connection for road cyclists riding on Cartwright or mountain bikes accessing the trailhead for polecat or peggies. I believe you do have the tools, and it's been discussed already, to create a better road section than the one you're being asked to approve that's in the plat today. Reducing the travel lane width to 10 feet would help with controlling the speeds while giving more room for bike lane. Additionally, I would be more comfortable with a 4-foot bike lane and a 1-foot painted buffer. This painted buffer gives a better visual for cars, especially on a road such as this. So I ask you today to approve this plan to ensure the safety of all road users or vehicular traffic, motorized or non-motorized, based upon standards from 2020 and not 2015. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it. All right, would anybody else like to
We
comment?
do have another one. Jared
Okay.
Austin.
All right. Thank you, Clancy. Jared, welcome. You please state your name and address for our record, please.
Hello. Thank you. Jared Austin, 4211 West Fairmont Street. I want to thank you all for your thought and care with this project because this means a lot to all of us in the cycling community and just anyone who happens to hop on a bike. So I'm glad we're thinking about this because based off of what striping pattern you end up choosing for this particular project, we may hit on what we discussed earlier about the actual project being unsafe for certain types of vehicular traffic. If the lanes are too narrow, if the speed is too high, the aspect of safety really is dependent on a lot of variables there. So I appreciate the extra thought that's being put into this. I appreciate the director wanting to involve the BAC with this. I also sit on the BAC, so I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, I would just be thankful for your continued attention to this issue. I really like Clancy's thought with the buffer between the traffic lane and the bike lane itself. I think that helps a lot, especially for people who aren't necessarily 100% comfortable with claiming the whole lane to maintain safety for themselves. But thank you for your time and your effort today, and I appreciate your efforts for safety for all road users moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate you joining us today. Ms. Spencer, any other individuals liking to comment?
I do not have anybody else.
All right. Thank you. All right, commissioners.
Madam President, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yes, I would move to approve the agreement with 4 specific criteria. One is that no bicycle lane shall be narrower than 4 feet. The painted buffer between bicycle lanes and car travel lanes shall be no narrower than 1 foot. Drivers shall be warned with signs of the narrowness of the road and the presence of cyclists, and that the road shall be designed to ensure speeds of no more than 25 miles an hour.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion.
Madam Chair?
Is there a second?
Yes,
Is there a second?
yes, me, Kent.
Okay, we have a motion with a second. I'm sorry, was that Commissioner Arnold?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a substitute motion for a couple of reasons. I believe that there are a couple of conditions that Commissioner Hanson has tried to add that are impossible. I don't think you can design a road to guarantee 25-mile-an-hour speeds, for example. I'd like to make the motion to approve the cooperative development agreement as presented by staff today, with some direction that the director come back to us with alternatives that we can consider at a future date pertaining to striping.
All right, commissioners, we have an
Second.
amended motion, and by Commissioner Arnold, seconded by Commissioner Baker. Any further discussion on the motion before you?
On the substitute motion?
On the substitute motion.
Yes, Madam Chair. I think it's, if I could.
So, hello?
So we have a first and a second on the substitute motion, so this is the time for discussion, and then we'll take the vote.
Great. So I think because we've adopted minimum standards of 5 feet with certain discretion to go down to 4 feet on rural collector roads, and that's critical given the traffic on here. We can't go narrower than that. That cyclists don't have the protection of a vehicle, so vehicle drivers can be prepared as they're driving up for the narrowness, and the safety is much better protected for the cyclists. And that in fact, I do believe the reference in our statute does refer to vehicles, and I think we should consider vehicles, both automobile vehicles, motor vehicles, and cyclists. I think we separate that out. But nonetheless, I think this is consistent with it. I think the developer will be fine because the width isn't going to change. It's really about designing it in a way that's consistent, and that we have enough knowledge of what that kind of design should be. If at a couple of tiny spots, you have to narrow the car lane down to 10.5 or 10 feet or whatever it might take. There are many, many places in this state, in this country, where the topography requires drivers to slow down because the road is narrow. And you warn them with signs, and it's safe. You don't take that away and make an unsafe bike lane during that segment and put the life of that cyclist at risk. So I think the original motion is much more secure in ensuring the safety of all users in this area. And frankly, the users who will probably the most are those who are going to live in this new residential area. They'll be the ones cycling a lot, and I think they'll appreciate the fact that a bike lane has been designed in a way that it can be used. Putting a bike lane up that's unsafe means it's going to be unused.
Okay, thank you. I think the substitute motion does take into account all of the concerns that have been addressed today with the width of the road, the options with the 4 foot, the buffer, signage is necessary. So that gives the director some latitude to come back, and they do have to come back now to us before we go forward, and I think that is covered in the substitute motion. So I would be inclined to support that. Commissioner Baker, you had a comment?
No. I'll just, no.
All right. We have a substitute motion before us. We'll call for the decision. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Nay.
All right. Substitute motion carries. And I think
Madam President?
we took the safety into account, and I think we've covered everything with that. Commissioner Baker?
And remember, this goes before the Bicycle Advisory Committee, so all of these things will be worked out there, I'm sure.
Yeah, that
And
was,
by the way,
yeah.
this is a terrible transmission today. It's cutting out a lot.
Yeah. You were kind of cutting out there at the end. I don't know why, but I do feel, I think safety is first and foremost on everyone's mind. I like that it's going to have some input from the BAC. So I think at the end it will be something that is palatable to all parties. All right, that was our last item on our regular agenda. Our last item is public communications. Is there anyone here or online to address the commission? Ms. Spencer?
I do not have anybody sign up, but Mr. John Mooney did want to make a comment in regards to the deer, the post park, so maybe he would like to just make his comment right now.
Mr. Mooney? I'll ask you to start over because your lips were moving, but I couldn't hear what you were saying. So you could start with your name and address.
Commissioner John Mooney, 7153 East Highland Valley Road. I apologize. I was trying to get in on the last discussion, and I made a mistake and didn't chat with Stacy privately for a hand raise. But I wanted to thank the commission for the discussion about safety and non-motorized vehicles on Pierce Park Lane in this cooperative agreement. That was a nice discussion to listen to, and I don't recall the roadways to bikeways plan being referenced in that discussion at all. If it was, then I missed that as well. But if it wasn't, then my suggestion gently is that your staff could probably start referencing some of those plans in the project reports. That would help inform you a little bit better going into these conversations. That's all. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mooney. We appreciate it. All right. Anyone else? All right. Hearing none. Just a reminder that commissioners, we reconvene at 2 p.m. for a work session on our FY 21-22 budget review, revenue, and operations. And with no one else wanting to address the commission, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Question, is it the same code to enter the Zoom?
I believe so. Ms. Spencer?
Yes,
It's the
same
same
code.
sign-on? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good to clarify that. Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you shortly.